Hello, hello, hey, sweet people, and welcome to another episode of Inglês no Rádio. My name is Foster Hodge. I'm an English teacher, and as always, I am here with the beautiful, the tremendously gracious and kind. Who am I here with?
I don't know if I'm gracious and kind. Maybe kind, but gracious? I don't know. Alexia, hi. How are you, Foster?
I am doing well, thank you, and you are all of those things. So, Alexia, it is raining a lot here
Here as
from
well.
a hurricane or something. It's raining in Porto. It's a rainy day.
Yes, it's a rainy day. And Foster, I must say, as you guys know, that we are recording this remotely. I'm in Porto. Foster is in the USA, South Carolina. I miss you, amor. I barely
Miss
can
you.
hear you.
You can barely hear me.
Yeah, it's like
Can you hear me now?
cutting your voice every 5 seconds.
What about now?
Keep going. Keep on going. I'll let you know.
Okay. Sorry for the technical difficulties. So, for the last 4 or 5 episodes on the show, we have been talking about technology, about our phones, about productivity, attention, distraction, all of these things that are incredibly relevant to our lives in the 21st century, even more so during a global pandemic. This conversation started with a question from one of our students, Bruno.
Hey, Bruno.
He was asking about using his phone as a study resource or a study tool. And we continued this conversation talking about a new documentary on Netflix called The Social Dilemma.
And if you didn't listen the last episodes, go back and go ahead and listen from the beginning.
Yes. Start with the episode where we answer Bruno's question and then go from there.
Can I ask you one thing before we start the really deep stuff? When two people say the same thing at the same time, how do you say it?
Jinx.
Do you know how it is in Portuguese? At least
I
in
knew it. I
Brazil.
can't remember.
Whoa! Can you hear the rain, amor? Wow! It's called mandrake.
Ah, I knew that. Mandrake.
Sim.
Yeah, there was a famous HBO series from the 90s from Brazil that I watched when I was first learning Portuguese called Mandrake.
Mandrake, exactly.
Cool. Yeah, in English we say jinx.
Jinx. Okay.
Yeah, and when we were little kids, we said jinx. 1, 2, 3, you owe me a Coke. I don't know how Coca-Cola kind of intervened in that situation, but whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have been talking principally about the individual effects of technology use, like how our phones and all of these things are making us more distracted. They are not helping our attention, kind of just making us dumber humans in general. But today, we're going to talk about the big picture. This is something that they really explain well in the documentary The Social Dilemma. So, we are going to talk about the global effects of this huge worldwide experiment that we are doing to humanity right now. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Okay. So, Alexia, where would you like to begin? I think it would be helpful for you to give some of your first impressions about the worldwide effects that you learned about in the documentary. Because, as you know, I've been talking about and thinking about these things for a long time, so I can kind of get very complicated very quickly. So I think it's better if you start with the basics.
I mean, I think that personally, nowadays, with everything that is happening in the world, everyone knows about everything. And those people, including me, we have our own truth, right? So I think that the most crazy thing for me is that nowadays we can't talk about some subjects with our families, with our friends to avoid a big discussion. or to avoid a big argument. Sorry.
Precisely. Yes. Just to clarify, in English, a discussion is
Discussão
almost just like a
saudável.
conversation. Yeah. And then an argument. É uma discussão.
Yeah. So for me, I think that the lack of communication about everything, it is what is worse about the world.
Yeah. Okay. I definitely agree with you. I think I would make just a small clarification to that argument. I think the lack of communication is more of a symptom, and the idea of objective truth is more the root problem, if that makes sense.
Mm, yeah, I mean, we come from two different cultural backgrounds, right? You grew up in the United States, I grew up in Brazil. You grew up in a small city, I grew up in a big city, right? But we had more or less the same resources to study and to talk about stuff. We had books, we had our teachers, and we had our families. We didn't have computers, we didn't have Google, we didn't have anything. So,
Mm-hmm.
from the beginning of our lives to I would say 15 years old, more or less, we had those people, actual people, talking about stuff that they knew because of newspapers, because of the news on the TV, and because of they studied.
Because of what they studied.
Yeah. Nowadays, all of us and our parents and our teachers and everyone, we have different resources that comes from the same thing, which is Google.
Yes. Okay, that's a great point. Let's explore this point more deeply.
I'm feeling so smart right now talking about this because it's very hard.
You're doing an excellent job. Okay, so I agree with you. In the past, we did have a more objective sense of truth and facts and reality. This is not a totally new thing. Like if you imagine the differences in our cultural backgrounds. Like in school, we did not learn about Latin America or Brazil. That was not a thing. So there are differences in our worldviews, right?
Mhm. Yeah, starting with the continents. This is crazy for me.
Yeah, Alexia gets very preoccupied with the fact that we consider continents differently
Yeah.
in the US and in Brazil.
Yeah. And the
Anyways,
rest of the world. I'm sorry, not only in Brazil, but the rest of the world.
okay, not the point of today's episode. So these things have always existed, but imagine putting them on steroids and then just immediately communicating it to the entire world. It makes it very, very crazy. And Alexia, you said something incredibly important, that nowadays we all have our own specific resources, our own places where we receive information. Hey, buddy. And we are all receiving different information, but for the most part, we are receiving this information from the same sources, which is to say, Google, Facebook, all social media, different news outlets. And the big issue here is algorithms and artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
Are you following me?
Yeah. I mean, the easy way to think about this is that what they explained during the documentary, but I really like to give this example is that imagine that I believe that the earth is plana? Plane?
The earth is flat.
Flat. Imagine that the earth is flat, and I, of course, typed this on Google and made my researches about it, found some groups that also have people who believe that. Okay. And you, Foster, you don't believe that. You believe that the earth is round, of course.
And that is correct, yes.
Yeah. So if I type on my phone or on my computer on Google, sitting next to you, the phrase, the world is, the earth is, it's going to appear for me flat. And for you, it's going to appear round because they already know what we believe. And Google will show the resources and the websites and everything related to what we believe.
Exactly. They even give this example in The Social Dilemma, the documentary. They talk about a famous basketball player from the United States.
That was
Kyrie
crazy.
Irving. Yeah, Kyrie Irving. He's one of the best basketball players alive today. He is a beautiful basketball player. And maybe 3 or 4 years ago, he was very, very determined about the fact that the earth is flat. He believes the earth is flat. And even a lot of other basketball players were like, yeah, I guess it is. Kyrie said it is. And then a few months after that, he and like all of his media team had to say, no, the earth is not flat. Like, he had to say, I was tricked. I got on YouTube and I started seeing all these things and sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, this brings up a really, really important point. So if you think about pretty much everything you do on the internet, now we are talking about the attention economy. So if you think about Facebook, if you think about YouTube, Google, whatever, how do they make money? They make money from keeping you on the service for as long as possible so they can show you ads. They can collect more of your data to show you better ads and sell more expensive advertisements to advertisers. So they do not have any incentive to say, hey, the world is round, all of the flat stuff, do not watch that. They want to keep you on YouTube, Facebook, Google, whatever, for as long as possible.
Yeah, exactly. And it doesn't matter if they are telling the truth or not. That's the main point. And this you can take as an example for every single thing about, I don't know, politics, about the global warming, about anything. Anything. So that's
Yeah,
why nowadays everything's so polarizado,
polarized.
And when you talk to someone that disagrees with you, they will say like, "Oh, I read this article on Google because it says this and that," and they will give you good arguments about that because this stuff exists and Google is showing this to this person. And
Exactly.
yeah, and I mean, they are creating mini cults about everything.
You say mini cults?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, essentially. Yeah, in English, we call these echo chambers, where you kind of fall in these places on the internet and everyone's telling you things you already believe and you're just hearing the same information again and again.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think most people, when we talk about the attention economy and like people receiving different information, I think a lot of people immediately think about fake news, like the most extreme case. Like, oh, my crazy uncle is reading fake news on Facebook and now he's crazy.
Yeah.
But I think, that exists. Fake news is a real and big problem. But I think the bigger problem is just kind of real news, but receiving news that constantly confirms what you already believe. So, for example, if I am on Facebook and I am reading news about immigration, I do a lot of research on the internet about immigration because it's something I care about. It's something that personally I want to live in different countries. The internet knows very well that I am very pro immigration. So when I read about immigration, almost everything is talking about, hey, Donald Trump did this bad thing to immigrants, or hey, these are the good reasons why immigration is good. But if, let's say, one of my parents is looking at the news, automatically their feed, the algorithms are giving them information about why immigration is bad or
Yeah.
negative stories about them. This could all be real information, but it's just confirming our previous beliefs, and it's making us more polarized. It's making it more difficult to communicate. It's making everything worse.
Yeah. And how do we fight that? I mean, because Generation Z is already here and it's already using the streaming services and everywhere to talk more and more about what they believe, right? And our generation is becoming an older generation and will be more and more addicted to Google and everything. And the new generation will have to fight that a lot because we won't be able to change that.
Yeah. And honestly, that is a huge question. How do we fight that? I don't know if we are the specialists to answer that question. They do talk about it a good bit in the social dilemma, but I say let's leave that one for another day. And for now, just recognize, okay, all of these people that you are disagreeing with, the fights that you are having with your family about politics or cultural issues, a lot of these things, it's not your fault. It's not the fault of the other person, but we are actually in a system that promotes that kind of thinking, that kind of behavior.
Yeah. And remember that you don't own the truth. I don't own the truth. And yeah,
Own.
neither your parents or your family. So communication between people and reading and being much more aware of what's happening, reading about both sides, it's extremely important nowadays because you can't be against of one thing forever and you can't be on the side the right I mean saying that the right side is that one forever as well. You had to have bom senso to understand what's happening and from that on be yourself and fight for what you believe.
Yeah, I think that is the fundamental question. If you ask most people, who owns the truth? Most people will think that's a ridiculous question and say, no one owns the truth. The truth is just truth, right? It's totally objective and no one owns it. I would argue in our current world, in the current environment, people do own the truth and they are big tech companies. And that is a very dangerous, scary, complicated situation.
Yeah. Yeah. So be careful, you guys, and go watch The Social Dilemma on Netflix. It's amazing and it's very scary.
Okay, on that happy note, we will talk to you guys tomorrow.
Bye.